Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I declare open this special meeting of the Human Rights Council. This special meeting has been convened as a matter of courtesy on the occasion of the visit of His Excellency Mr. Nicolás Maduro Moros, President of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. May I kindly ask you to remain seated while I take a moment to escort President Nicolás Maduro Moros to the podium. Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to welcome His Excellency Mr. Nicolás Maduro Moros, President of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, to the Human Rights Council today. Bienvenido al Consejo.
Welcome to the Council, Mr. President.
Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the HRC is responsible for the promotion and protection of human rights around the globe and for addressing situations of human rights violations and make recommendations on them. In this regard, I trust that Venezuela, as a re-elected member of the Council, will fully cooperate with its mechanisms, in particular with special procedures. I understand that the last special rapporteur has been in Venezuela in 1996. With these words, let's proceed. We will now watch a video message by the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Mr. Zeid Ra'ad al-Hussein.
Mr. President, distinguished members of the Council, Excellencies, please allow me to welcome His Excellency President Nicolás Maduro to the Human Rights Council. I welcome this opportunity for the Council to hear from President Maduro about the human rights situation in the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, particularly given its recent re-election to this important body. Membership of the Council comes with the responsibility to promote and protect human rights in one's own country, but also on the global stage. It is my sincere hope that Venezuela will strive to make concrete progress on both fronts. I welcome Venezuela's participation in the Council's Universal Periodic Review and in its review this year by both the UN Human Rights Committee and the Committee on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. I encourage its continued cooperation with the international human rights mechanisms And my office in particular, our regional office for South America, is ready to provide technical assistance in the implementation of the recommendations made by the committees and in Venezuela's UPR, as well as on the National Human Rights Action Plan. I also urge Venezuela to ratify again the Inter-American Convention on Human Rights. A number of UN human rights bodies, including the Working Group on Arbitrary Detention and the Human Rights Committee, as well as my own office, have raised serious concerns about the independence of the judiciary in Venezuela, the impartiality of judges and prosecutors, and the pressures they face in handling politically sensitive cases. The cases of Judge Maria Lourdes Afiuni and Leopoldo Lopez are stark illustrations of these problems. The Human Rights Committee also recently expressed concerns, which I share, about intimidation, threats, and attacks against journalists, human rights defenders, and lawyers. I take this opportunity to urge Venezuela to comply with the recommendations of these international human rights bodies and to ensure that such individuals do not face undue pressure in carrying out their important work. As the Committee on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights recently noted, Venezuela has made significant progress in the reduction of malnutrition and poverty. However, in recent years, there has been what the committee termed a regressive tendency in the results of the fight against poverty, which needs to be addressed. The implementation of a broad state of emergency in 24 municipalities, which suspends a number of human rights protections, is also deeply worrisome and should be promptly lifted. It is one of the key obligations of a sovereign state to uphold human rights and to defend even those, indeed especially those, who disagree with the state's policies. It is thus that we build societies that are stable, resilient, and prosperous. I thank you.
Thank you. It is now my honor to invite His Excellency Mr. Nicolas Maduro Moros, President of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, to make his statement. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Your Excellencies, President Joaquin Roquer, President of the Human Rights Council, high-ranking authorities in the Human Rights Council, representatives, honorable representatives of the countries represented here in the Human Rights Council, working within the UN system, of course. I am deeply grateful for the opportunity to be here again some years ago as Foreign Affairs Minister of our Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. It was incumbent upon me to be here to defend the truth of our fatherland in the Universal Periodic Review of 2011. We always are up to this task with transparency, and Venezuela always embattled. This is not the first time that a civil servant has sent audacious accusations taken from the agendas of global harassment of the imperialist attack against the Bolivarian Republic, and this will not be the first time that we strike down these lies with the strength of the truth in our country, in our fatherland. Thank you for receiving me. I bring from Venezuela again. I come from Venezuela again as president this time of our distinguished fatherland, and I thank the United Nations system for the tireless support that it provides Venezuela and the processes of progressive building of a new state, as we see in our Constitution, a social state, a state of law, a new state of justice, a new democratic state. You know of the efforts deployed by our people to build a new reality based on equality and justice. I should in particular like to thank all of those countries that are represented in the United Nations. Thank you for the favorable vote for Venezuela when it comes to being re-elected for 3 additional years as a member of the Human Rights Council of the United Nations. This is a vote of confidence. It's a universal vote of confidence of the international community, the Committee of Nations, which has expressed its desire beyond manipulative and lie-based campaigns. We hold our flag high, the fight of a people, the Venezuelan people, seeking to build its new independence, building its new history. It is for this reason, first, that I have come to make clear our appreciation and our commitment as well to building a true system, a true human rights system, a new human rights system for humanity. Significant efforts culminated in 2006 with the creation of this Human Rights Council. And over the years since then, this has been a worthy effort, but much remains to be done. Much remains to be done in order to consolidate a human rights system, to consolidate this collective body that allows for us to establish what we see in the doorway to this hall and this magnificent room, to build a true dialogue of civilizations, a true dialogue among humans in which there is no effort to impose one opinion on people, but rather in which we want to uphold each of our stories, the story that shows where we've come and where we want to go. The people of Latin America, the people of the Caribbean and Africa and Asia, the people of the world, we have a story. And this has built an identity that seeks to reflect our human story. We are, as many times our commander Hugo Chavez had said, whose name I invoke, our magnificent leader of all of humanity in this century. It is us, let us recognize this. It is us in South America, the people that had been slaves and that were made martyrs. How many centuries of slavery and martyrdom have our ancestors suffered? Those who speaks of the indigenous Holocaust, 80 million human beings were exterminated in order to impose a truth of that time, the same imperial colonial reality that we saw 500 years ago. They came to discover us. They called it a discovery. Those who speak of the Afro-American Holocaust as well, how many of our ancestors, our grandparents, were kidnapped, removed, abducted from their homeland, from their culture, from their religion, and that lent to us the pigment of our skin and the strength of our action. They came also to leave in their wake much pain. 40, 60 million of our grandparents, Africans, they were brought over, they were killed. Investigations have not yet shed clear light on this, but the Americas were filled with slavery, which we see still most directly in racism, which we continue to fight as peoples of the world. It is those who lived in martyrdom and the slaves that are here. We are now free people, however. We are seeking a road ahead, a path, each one respecting their own rhythms. No one can hoist a model of a political system, of an economic system, a single way of thinking, a uniform vision, imposing it on everyone else in recent days, as we have been participating in the special summit in Saudi Arabia between the countries of South America and the countries of the Arab world, we have ratified the rights of the people of the South to be respected in our own identity and in our individual characteristics. Venezuela has taken a road over the last 17 years toward the construction of a social state of justice and law. Our constitution in the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela was born of a popular process, a referendum that founded the basis of our country. And this had a great debate, unique in the history of our land. We established the basic guidelines of what has been and what will be the future of our fatherland. We could say that 17 years ago, when we see the beginning of this process, which led to the creation of this Constitution and which cast the die for the future of our country, we see born a new manner of seeing things, a new manner of building human rights for the first time in Venezuela, looking at human rights as an indivisible body, comprehensive body of rights that brings together a great many dimensions and that places the human being at the center of the efforts to develop those areas of life that lead to social happiness, as was the historic concept which we saw in the Angostura speech of 15 February 1819 from our Simón Bolívar. He said, the best government is that which brings together and provides the greatest amount of happiness for its people, the greatest amount of social security for the people, and the greatest amount of political stability for the people. These are concepts that lead to the greatest amount of happiness, social happiness. And that's where we based our work. Commander Chavez based his work on this in order to build a concept that is holistic and it puts the human being at the center of our efforts. This Constitution was written by millions of human beings. And this is the only constitution in the history of Venezuela that was the subject of consultation and subject to vote publicly, transparently, and legitimately by the people of Venezuela. This constitution sets forth in its third article 9 chapters in which we very clearly define this concept, that for Venezuela, despite being adopted in 1989, represents the arrival of the 21st century, an early arrival of the 21st century in our country. It clearly sets forth the protection of sensitive sectors of our society, vulnerable sectors, children, boys and girls, right holders, based on the Constitution, social rights. It sets forth protection for the first time in the history, environmental rights. It sets forth special protection for health care, education, public education, free, quality, universal public health care. It sets forth for the protection of labor rights for our workers, the right to stability and quality in work in their jobs. It sets forth protection for contractual rights, salary rights, the protection also of the youth, the adolescents, the teens, the protection of women in particular, of people, of persons with disabilities. This is a constitution that in its third section, there are 9 chapters, 116 articles. A third of our constitution was drafted and developed as a structure that would enshrine in a cross-cutting manner the new structure of our country from 1999. And I can say today that it was worth this effort to put together this Constitution with the popular referendum that we had in our country. It was worth putting together a Constitution that identifies all of the social sectors and that puts the human being at the center of our efforts. The Venezuelan human being in the supreme effort to build a new society that is not without complex processes that we see in Latin America. Venezuela has suffered over nearly 2 decades ongoing harassment of the imperialist powers of the United States. You know, the victim was the victim of a coup d'etat that was prepared and sent along prior to the events in Iraq in 2011, in April. All of the declassified documents today show the manner in which that was prepared, in which hate was spread throughout certain sectors of the population, the manner in which there was an effort to isolate Venezuela in order to inflict upon our country that which we saw over the long, torturous, dark 20th century in the Caribbean and Latin America, filled with military dictatorships, coups, atrocious violations of human rights. Venezuela has faced, not just in the first decade of this 21st century, today, Venezuela still undergoes ongoing harassment. And as our ambassador Jorge Valero, our foreign minister Rodriguez, has indicated, and has been reported also before the United Nations system on an ongoing basis, Venezuela faces ongoing harassment and a misuse and a manipulation of the issue of human rights. It's used in the West as a manipulation in order to try to mark in our country, to isolate our country. And as an attempt, I would say also to protect those who are seeking to destroy the human rights system and democracy that our country has built over the last 17 years. In the streets of Maracaibo or Caracas or Valencia, perhaps, in our beloved land, it's not others, it's the same people that in 2002 brought forth the coup. The self-same individuals seeking a type of international impunity in order to conspire and undermine society's rights and to seek to topple legitimate governments such as that which I preside in our country. It is the same that have all of the support, financial support, media support, and that have certain structures of the international system in the United Nations that back the shameless violence. In 2014, just last year, in this room, we saw the mothers, the daughters, the sons, the widows of the victims that were killed in 2014, in the first half of 2014. Do you know that an operation was deployed, a violent operation? Half a country went up in flames, 43 victims, 43 dead, one after the other. The cases have been investigated and tried in the Venezuelan judiciary. I demand respect from those who cowardly attacked that system. The judiciary in Venezuela has risen from the ashes of the most wretched corruption and classist treatment. Here we see 43 victims, 43 left dead, and more than 900 victims that many of them, I pardon the expression, many of them have become almost a living dead. More than 900 victims. The youth, youngsters without a right for their normal human development. The objective of the Guarimba insurrection against the state, against the democracy, against citizen peace. This had the same objective that we saw in April, to put an end to this effort to bring national independence, to put an end to this effort to bring dignity and rebellion against the imperialist models, to put an end to this beautiful act that looked at building our own social, economic, and political model, as in 2002. But in a different way. There were these attempts to destroy our Republican life and to impose oligarchies, financial, or groups that have been financed by people abroad. And this failed. And after this failure, those who sought to do this continue with their support from the imperial powers, and they portray themselves as victims when the opposite is true. They are the ones that tried to make a victim of a people and a country. Our country has its truth. Venezuela has its truth in its heart. It carries it in its heart. It is a country of values. It is a country that loves liberty. We, our generation of men and women, we don't come from the highfalutin spheres of the global elite. Each one of us, we come from the fields of the popular fight, the people's fight, the unions fight, universities, teaching schools. It is men and women that are lifting up with a new identity, a new people's identity, nationwide. We are facing this enormous challenge of building a new society, a new society. We will be moving forward. We are moving forward in each one of these efforts. In the UPR of 2011, we were able to bring to you officially, as we will be doing next year in 2016, we're able to bring to you the important progress that we've seen in our country in the fight against poverty and abject poverty. There's a new discourse of attacks against Venezuela. We can say that despite a 2015 that has been difficult, economic warfare, because the prices of our primary export product, petroleum, have plummeted 64%. Today, Venezuela will be, this year, showing record reductions, despite this, in poverty and abject poverty. It is not true that there is a tangible trend toward an increase in poverty and abject poverty. Venezuela has a great many social plans with missions that protect our people in the public, free, expansive, and quality public education, and the building of a new system of public health that today tends to 83% of the Venezuelans, in the building of a housing building system that breaks records in building housing units around the world, dignified housing units, developing a habitat as an integrating factor so that the human beings can live in a comprehensive, holistic society. Today, I must say that with the implementation of public sector investments, again, despite the economic warfare and the drastic fall of government income due to the petroleum export prices, Venezuela has been defending also the creation of jobs, and this year, Venezuela will see the lowest levels of employment. We've seen the lowest levels of employment in our history. 4.7, 4.8%, and that says quite a bit. But there's also the matter of the quality of the jobs that are being created, the protection of jobs, the protection of income, wages on an ongoing basis. In this Constitution, and I participated in the drafting of this Constitution, in the public referendum and constituent process, we did something that, for us, those who fight in the unions, back in the 80s and the 90s, this was but a dream. We were able to build this constitutional process, mobile salary scales for the protection of income for our workers, despite them being embattled by the economy and the crises and inflation. In implementing this Constitution over the last 17 years, we have defended wages. This year, and just this year, and we have seen a quarterly salary protection system. We have had 4 wage increases, much ahead of inflation, looking at income as a fundamental issue. That, together with our public policies and our missions, big and little, will put the human being at the center, the human being as the beneficiary of the public services, education, health care, the right to food, the right to housing, the right to a habitat, the right to culture, the right to culture and identity, the right to nationality and citizenship, a series of public policies that today allow us to move ahead with optimism, and that have been subjected to different states of affairs. In 2014, there was a violent economic state of affairs, or political state of affairs, that is, which we addressed with the tools of justice. This allowed us to move forward and move past that state of affairs. In 2015, we had a great deal of economic complexity. It put to the test our model. It put our model to the test when it comes to protecting and addressing and opening our arms to the most vulnerable sectors of our population. In the midst of these difficulties, Venezuela in 2015, a complicated 2015, is victorious. This shows that our social model of well-being, which we are building through our missions and big missions, is a state that is viable, feasible, useful, and successful from the point of view of human rights, and as regards our guarantees for our populations.
El año pasado, bueno,
Last year, amid circumstances that I've mentioned and that you know all too well, we invited a special commission of UNISOR to be present in our process of dialogue in order to channel policy, politically and peacefully, this situation marked by insurgency, by extremist groups rising up against Venezuelan democracy. Not just any extremist groups, dear brothers and sisters of the world. No, not just any groups. Powerful groups, economically powerful groups in the media, with very powerful support from the lobbies of the world. They knock on doors, they open doors, they receive calls to make statements. The UN system and the Human Rights Council in particular, this lovely experiment that we're building together, this experience, must focus on ensuring that these bodies not be misused as a political weapon against governments or independent projects, as a political weapon for processes that not only seek independence, but that are rebellious processes such as ours in Venezuela. We are dissidents against those who seek to impose just one vision of the world. We have an independent process, and we have the right to insist on this. We have the right to life. As an independent process, we are dissidents, revolutionary, we are rebels. Venezuela demands, before this Human Rights Council, the highest level of respect from all bodies that are within the umbrella of this collegiate body. The United Nations being the single voice that must be obeyed. And the United Nations, what is it, the people or the bureaucrats? Who elected Venezuela to be a member of the Human Rights Council? Who re-elected Venezuela just 4 months ago? It was the legitimately elected governments, the legitimate governments within the United Nations, or was it someone else? I would like to thank the governments that did so, because it's very clear that who has and who should have the definitive power in these collegiate bodies and in this system, in which we are endeavoring to build common values, common mechanisms for protecting us, for protecting ourselves, for helping each other in this effort to build a humanity that truly can be referred to as such. It is for this reason that we have called to raise the alarm, sound the alarm once, twice, 3 times, our brothers in Africa, Asia, Latin America, the Caribbean, brothers and sisters of Europe, brothers and sisters of the world. Venezuela wishes to sound the alarm vis-a-vis the misuse of government officials that believe that they have more power than the United Nations itself. The sovereignty must remain in the hands of the legitimate governments. Venezuela, in this effort, decided through an organic law to create a National Council for Human Rights. This council, this National Human Rights Council, has been created It is undertaking public consultations for the creation of a national human rights plan. I'm pleased, President Joaquin Roquer, President of the Human Rights Council, Vice Presidents, I am pleased to announce to you that this national human rights plan, which is the result of a broad consultation with all sectors of society, will be entirely in step, harmoniously, with the presentation of the UPR for our Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela before this body in 2016. And we have our president of that body here. We have been able to consult all sectors of civil society, all sectors of the political sphere, social movements, and academians as well. More than 200,000 proposals have been brought together, and I am certain that this national human rights plan will be able to bring about something that for us is of the utmost importance. That is the harmonization of the constitutional human rights concept with the lessons learned and the experience gained universally with the international human rights system represented here in the Human Rights Council. This was the structural response, we might say, to the 2014 insurrection, the creation of a National Human Rights Council, seeking truth in a country that yearns for peace. Venezuela is a country that is willing to make all manner of sacrifice, facing all manner of battles. And I say this from my heart, from my soul, and the heart and soul of a noble people, the Venezuelan people. And these are efforts to defend our right to peace and political stability. On 6 December, Venezuela will be holding elections anew. This will be based on our human rights guarantees and our civil and political guarantees in our Constitution. Venezuela, in 17 years, has held 19 elections, 5 public referendums, including the first for the in 2014 by signature, popular signatures. We see the first consultative process to ask the people if they wanted for Commander Chavez to continue as president or to step down. And the people, in their sovereignty, 60% said Commander Chavez should continue as president. 5 referendums have been held. We've had election cycles, renovation of our government bodies and the presidency, our regional bodies, our governors. All governors are elected, all authorities, and all federal bodies and all municipal bodies, they're all elected, and in our National Assembly as well. We will see the election of the 4th legislature pursuant to our new Constitution on 6 December. You are cordially invited, all of the representatives of governments and organizations that wish to be present and participate in our celebration of peace and democracy on 6 December in Venezuela. You are cordially invited. Venezuela has put together an electoral system that is highly technologically sophisticated. The Venezuelan electoral system has 25 audit processes before the results are found. Do you know that on the day of elections, there is an audit on site of 54% of the electoral voting ballot boxes in real time, on the ground, as things unfold, as the people vote, and 54% of the results are compared to the electronic systems, comparing the electronic system with the physical results, confirming things, voting office by voting office. This is the only country, I believe, I apologize if that's not the case, but it's the only country that undertakes so many efforts to verify the proper unfolding of the electoral process. On 6 December, we will have this important event. And with the tensions that exist as we seek to create this, as General Kelly, General of the U.S. Army, said, do you know that a week ago, General Kelly, the head of Southcom, said that Venezuela was going to implode politically, socially. And he issued a series of statements that clearly come from a general of the U.S. Army, head of Southcom. These are not just thoughts of his. These are mandates. These are attacks. These are threats. Venezuela is defending itself with the only weapon we have at our disposal, truth. With the only weapon we have, national conscience. And I say here, Thursday, 12 November 2015, I say that I am certain that in the next weeks when we see the elections on 6 December, our country will reconfirm its will for peace, democracy, and freedom. These are challenges in our political, social, and economic systems. We face these. I very much and deeply appreciate this opportunity to speak with you, to hold this sincere gathering, a debate, a dialogue. We arrived from Saudi Arabia after a special summit, looking at the new systems, looking at global regionalism. A new regionalism has been born, and it focuses on a pluripolar world, multi-centric world. We are attached to the dream of building a multipolar world, multi-centric world in economic matters, in political matters, in human matters. We believe in civilizations and cultures. That's what we sought to do in Saudi Arabia. South America went, and we want to show that we, as Mario Benedetti said and Eduardo Galeano said, our South America has gone to meet the sister nations of the Arab world, the fourth summit. And we decided to hold the fourth summit in 2018 in Venezuela. We welcome this. We appreciate it. And with our dialogue, we have come to this Human Rights Council to hold this human encounter and dialogue of civilizations. Venezuela takes its seat thus for the next 3 years in the Human Rights Council in 2016, 17, and 18. All the years in this 21st century are crucial. What will we see over the next 3 years with painful humanitarian migration of the people of the Middle East, the people of Africa toward Europe? No one has a crystal ball. We don't have the crystal, but even without the crystal ball, we can imagine the pain caused by the wars of illegal intervention and sacking and plundering that led to the destruction of Libya and Afghanistan, and that destroyed Syria. Why are these people taking the road toward Europe? Thousands upon thousands of brothers and sisters from Africa and from Asia and from the Middle East. They come seeking an oasis, seeking to leave behind the desert, seeking the oasis of peace, stability, and tranquility. What will happen over the next 3 years? Venezuela comes to add its voice and effort to resolving the humanitarian crisis that we see affecting all of Europe and affecting all of our peoples. This is item number 1 on our agenda, and the agenda that we believe should be a shared agenda, address the plight of the thousands and thousands of migrants. We must protect them. What's happening in the Mediterranean should not be happening. What would the High Commissioner for Human Rights say regarding what is happening in the Mediterranean with the death of thousands and thousands? They must be protected. They must be supported. Venezuela, over the next 3 years, will be providing its support with passion and love and effort, more than ever, the cause of the Palestinian people and their rights to their land, their right to independence, their right to a free state, their right to life.
We'd like to thank the international community then
Thank you for having given us your vote of confidence in the General Assembly of the United Nations. We are here to defend the most just causes at the center of humanity. And it must bind us all together, unite us, because behind these events, behind these painful circumstances that we see in migration toward Europe, behind war, behind the Palestinian cause, we see the matters of the causes of the respect for the right to life and effort to put into war and hegemonic efforts to impose above the wills of the people, people that were slaves and that were in colonies. Now we want to be men and women that are free. This is the same cause of all conflicts. Venezuela comes to reconfirm its vote. Your Excellency, President, Vice Presidents, we wish to offer our voice and our commitment in this tremendous battle. Next year, Venezuela, as you know, will be taking up the presidency of the NAM, the non-aligned movement, which brings together 120 countries within our United Nations system. And here in the Human Rights Council, we would like to humbly, but with passion, provide our support from the presidency of the NAM, the non-aligned movement. We'd like to support all those processes that allow us to hone the system. A test, perhaps. Happily or unhappily, I would say happily, because this has laid the groundwork in the Human Rights Council of those key elements that rectify the mistakes that have led to the deterioration of the mechanisms that existed to oversee, protect, and promote human rights in the past within the UN. A good example, we often offer this example of how we can renew, of how we can bring change that are in step with the majority desires of humanity. We see 2006, and we provide our full optimism. We offer full optimism so that this Human Rights Council, as an experiment, as an effort within the United Nations to continue to move along the path toward consolidation, towards a honing of its efforts, to rectify mistakes, and to take these microphones and put them at the service of those to whom they must serve, to serve the purpose, the cause of truth, and the legitimate rights of the people of the world who must have a voice here. I should like to thank you, President, for this immense opportunity that you have bestowed upon me to bring forth the truth of Venezuela and to continue to contribute in this powerful dialogue, a human dialogue, a dialogue of civilizations, seeking to build a true human rights system that supports us, that helps us, and that protects one and all. Thank you very much.
I would like to thank His Excellency Mr. Nicolás Maduro Moros, President of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, for his statement. This brings us to the end of this special meeting. I would like to thank all of you for your presence today. I now declare closed this special meeting of the Human Rights Council.
Acá está. Ah, hay que